What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So UFC 311 is in the books. I'm gonna go over the main card. I stayed up late so it could be fresh in the brain for you guys. But you know what? It was actually a really good card. Despite that they switched a few things around, they threw kind of a curveball with putting Jailton Almeida on the main card. I was like, wait a minute. Thought he was on the prelims. What's going on here? But to my surprise, Jailton Almeida halfway impressed me. But you know what? Don't get ahead of yourself, bro. That wasn't even the first fight. First fight on the card was Kevin Holland versus Rainier, or RDR. I'm going to call him RDR. He did exactly what I thought he was going to do. I mean, it took all of 5 to 10 seconds before he had already grabbed a leg, got Kevin Holland on the ground. And I do find it interesting how Kevin Holland is supposed to be this high level jiu-jitsu guy under Travis Lutter, and they always toot his horn for him being this really good jiu-jitsu guy, but you never see him use his jiu-jitsu. And then anytime he gets on the ground with anybody who's decent at jiu-jitsu and who plays jiu-jitsu with him, he looks bitch made. I don't know. I don't know if he's just, going up against guys that are just completely different level. Now, I know that RDR, that's kind of his thing. I did a pre-fight breakdown on him, and literally the whole 14 minutes of his highlights were clinch work, takedowns, submissions. This guy is literally a submission king. Same thing here. I mean, he obviously was able to dispatch of Kevin Holland. In the first round, it was really quick. Kevin Holland did not have time to do anything, pretty much. So, first round submission by RDR. It was a rear naked choke at 3:31 of round number one. Moving on up the card. That's where they threw me the curveball of Jailton Almeida up against Sergey Spivak. Look, I was surprised because it looked for a minute there like Sergey was, hanging with Almeida in the takedowns. Even looked like he was dominating a couple of those. There was a couple of times where he kind of flipped around the takedown and ended up on top, ended up in a dominant position. I was actually kind of shocked. I was like, okay, well, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Okay. Spivak showing that he's not going to be bullied by, a well-known grappler like Jailton Almeida. And he looked good there for a few minutes until he just didn't look good anymore. And he got TKO'd at 4 minutes and 53 seconds of round number one. And I gotta say, I gotta give Jailton Almeida a little bit of props. When he met some resistance on the ground, the guy can actually throw some decent strikes in the pocket. He's actually got some pretty hard punches. I mean, he is a pretty big, jacked dude, so I guess I shouldn't have been that surprised. I just know that in the past, a few times that I've watched his fights, it's just been a laborious, just grappling affair that just, made you just want to go take a 30-minute nap until it was all over with, right? But I got to give him credit here. The takedowns and the grappling wasn't really working for him that well. I think he felt something in Spivak. Spivak's a big dude at heavyweight. I think he was a little bigger, maybe a little stronger than Jailton Almeida, and I think Almeida felt that when these guys clinched up and when they went to the ground. So, they got up, stood up on the break. Jailton caught him with a couple of good exchanges. I know he hit him with a really good uppercut that hurt him and rocked him, and he was able to finish him, able to get him out of there in the first round. So, props to Jailton Almeida. Jailton, not that you give a shit what I think, but I owe you an apology, bro. Because I said on my pre-fight breakdown that if you needed to get yourself a nap in, Jailton Almeida fight is a good time to get your nap in. You wouldn't have wanted to sleep through that one. I admit it. You would have gotten a 4 minute and 53-second nap. That's it. And it would have been just enough to piss you off. You would have woke up pissed off because you would have only slept for 4 minutes and 53 seconds. So, my foot in my mouth. And props to Jailton Almeida. And he actually finished the fight via TKO. instead of a stifling, control, grappling decision like he normally does. So props to him. Moving on up the card, Yuri Prohaska versus Jamal Hill, or Jamal Hill, as some people like to call him. I hear it both ways. Listen, this one, this is one of those that I like Yuri a lot, and I really wanted Yuri to win this fight. I reluctantly picked Jamal Hill because I feel like Hill is a more technically sound striker and boxer, kickboxer, than is Yuri Prohaska. Now, Yuri Prohaska is one of those guys that just puts a pace on people, and he's deceivingly strong, deceivingly powerful, and deceivingly quick too. He hit he hit Hill several times with that, pull left, slip left, he would slip left, left jab, and then right hook. He hit Hill with that and hurt him with that a couple of times. Dropped him a couple of times in the fight. Dropped him one time, I think it was in the first round, with a straight left, set Hill on his butt. Listen, on into the second round, I was starting to get a little bit concerned because that technical prowess and being a more solid striker fundamentally of Hill than Prohaska. I thought that I thought Hill was starting to kind of take over in the second round. He kept hitting Yuri to the body. You could tell that was bothering Yuri because he started dropping his elbow at that point, and you could tell that the corner of Hill you know, had given him the advice to go back to that spot, and he was listening. He was doing it. Yuri was reacting. I thought at that point the tide was starting to turn and that it was going to end up being probably a decision win by Hill. That's actually what I picked pre-fight. But I'm telling you, man, Yuri, I don't know if it's that samurai spirit. I don't know if it's that awkward way that he fights, the spinning attacks, the bouncing, the in and out, the way he's just sitting there with his hands down. Then all of a sudden he comes across with the right hand. I mean, it's one of those things where I think guys are just, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do, where to go. They're in there and their fundamentals just don't make as much sense when they're in there with Yuri because they don't have any guys in their training camps that fights the way Yuri does. He's one of those guys that's just kind of created his own hybrid of martial art. And you know what? It looks awkward. It just looks downright goofy at times. Let's be honest. But I'll be damned. It works for the guy. And plus, he has that no quit, just that sort of pace and pressure that just eventually stuff is just coming from all these different places and he's fainting and he's jumping and he's bouncing and he's going over here and he's over there and dudes are just like, whoa, what, and the next thing you know, they get caught with something because there's just so much confusion, in the way he fights and the way he throws his strikes. And I think guys just get bombarded by it, and eventually they get caught with their hands down. Eventually they get caught in the pocket, their hands are in the wrong place, and he comes over the top with something. It hurts guys. He obviously has a lot of power. He's a big dude. You could tell who had the power advantage in that fight from the very beginning. I mean, it was obvious that Yuri had a power advantage over Hill. I was expecting Hill to win that. I thought that he would outpoint Yuri to a decision, but I'm pleasantly surprised that Yuri actually ended up winning that fight. TKO in at 3 minutes and 1 second of round number 3. So I tell you what, man, Yuri is one of those guys you can just never count him out. I talked about that fight he had with Rakic. I mean, I just knew that it was a matter of time before Yuri was going to fall like a tree. I mean, he was taking damaging leg kicks in that fight. It just looked really bad and all downhill for Yuri. But then, just like that, he caught Rakic with something, hurt him. When when Yuri senses blood, when he smells that blood in the water, he's one of those guys that just attacks double time. He really starts to come after you then. Next thing you know, a guy gets hurt, he gets a little tired, and then Yuri amps it up, and then it's over. It's over, and I don't know, man. Yuri's one of those guys that he just has that. He just has that X factor that's kind of hard to put your finger on it. Like, it's hard to put your finger on why he's really so good and why he really beats a lot of these guys. And he is known to take a lot of shots in his fights. I mean, he's known to keep his hands down. He's known to, step in and get hit, with stuff that he's not seen coming. But he's had a pretty good chin for the most part. He's just one of those guys that you can never count that guy out, and he showed it tonight. Ended up beating Jamal Hill, TKO, third round. It is what it is. Moving on up the card, Merab Dvalishvili defeats Umar Nurmagomedov. I actually picked this one correctly. I thought that this would go to Merab, be a decision. This was a banger of a fight. Great fight, very high level, and it was one of those that the first 3 rounds, while Umar, or before Umar really began to get winded, I kind of sensed that Marab was. I'm not going to say he was ever worried, but it seemed like he was trying to pace himself a little bit because he wasn't sure. I think he was kind of just biding his time and waiting for Umar. I think he knew that Umar didn't typically keep that sort of relentless pace in his fights. And I think he and his team were banking on and expecting Umar to finally hit a brick wall and just not be able to push through it the way they knew that Marab could. Because let's be honest, the first round, first couple of rounds actually, Umar looked really good. He was landing more strikes. He was landing some good straight right hands, landed some good lefts, landed a few good high kicks, landed a few good kicks to the body. I mean, it was very clear who the more technical, better striker was. I thought Umar had a speed advantage in that fight. But listen, it's one of those things where, you know what they say, lack of cardio or lack of endurance makes a coward out of anyone, and if you get to a point where you hit that brick wall and then you're not one of those guys that can just push through it and keep going and keep ramping it up and ramping it up and ramping it up like Marab does, eventually you're just kind of going to wilt under the pressure. And then your strikes aren't going to be as sharp. Your strikes aren't going to be as quickly. You notice towards the end, whereas he was able to shuck off Marab's takedowns in the beginning, in the last couple of rounds there, he was starting to even get taken down by Marab. Imagine that. A Nurmagomedov getting taken down by Marab. Now listen, I'm not trying to, obviously Marab is a very, very talented at what he does, and he's a good grappler, and a good wrestler as well. So I'm not throwing off on him at all, but I will say if Umar would have been able to maintain the pace that Marab was able to maintain, and if he would have been able to maintain the pace that Umar was maintaining in the first round and the second round, even on into the third round, he could have won that fight. Okay? But he couldn't. He couldn't. It eventually got to the point where he hit that brick wall, and Marab did not hit the brick wall, and he was able to just push right on through it. He started amping it up, ramping it up, and it was obvious. I mean, Joe Rogan could not stop nut hugging Merab Dvalishvili. It's a little bit annoying, I'm going to be honest with you, because I know John Anik is really close with Ray Longo, and then obviously Merab is Ray Longo's guy, and I don't know, they were all over Marab's nuts the whole time. Oh, he's a machine. You can tell by looking at Umar that Umar is just very, very, he's getting very, very tired, very, very winded here. He's looking really more sluggish if you look at the two and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's all they talked about the last 3 rounds. I'm just like, dude, give it a rest, bro. We see it. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, but it's just be quiet for a minute, bro. Just let us watch, okay? Just let us watch. But I mean, he wasn't lying. That's what happened. Got on into the third round, the fourth round, and listen, that goes to show you why Marab. When I looked at his statistics, when I did the pre-fight breakdown, I looked and I was like, 270 attempted takedowns and something like 37 landed. I was like, but you saw that tonight in the fourth and fifth round. Did you see how many times that Marab just went down and just grabbed a single leg? Not really even an attempt to take him down, just grabbing the leg just to make him have to do something, to make him have to work, to make him have to defend it, to make him have to expend more energy, to make him more tired than he already was, to make him not sure if he's going to go down here, make sure, or whether he's going to come up top. It needs to sprawl, or does he need to stand up? Sprawl, stand up, sprawl, stand up, sprawl, stand up, sprawl, stand up. I mean, it's just, that's how he breaks guys with that sort of pace. And then towards the end, you know, Umar, although I think when you chop it up to technical skill versus technical skill, I would give it to Umar 10 times out of 10, right? But Marab just has that X factor, and he knows how to use his gifts very wisely. And he is a guy who weaponizes pace. He's really, really good at that. And I got to give him credit for being one of those guys that knows when to hold back a little bit. He knows when to wait. He knows when to wait. And then he knows when to put on the pressure. And he also knows how to keep guys guessing, because that whole, oh, I'm shooting. No, I'm not. Oh, I'm shooting. No, I'm not. Oh, I'm shooting. I'm grabbing your leg. No, I'm not. Just kidding. I mean, he did that, I know, 150 times, it seemed like, in the last couple of rounds. And it's just, you could just see, Umar just, you know, just trying to remain in it any way he could and just try to not look bad in front of his cousin Khabib. It's just, it was tough to watch. Umar 18-0. Obviously, this is his first loss. I did pick this. I did pick Merab to beat him because I thought that this exact thing was going to happen. It was the pace, the relentless pace of Merab that concerned me in this fight. And I just don't know anyone else in that bantamweight division that is able to maintain that sort of pace. Listen, Merab's not the most talented. He's not the most skilled guy in that division. But by golly, his cardio is much like a cyborg. I mean, that guy just does not get tired. And I can honestly say he looked pretty much exactly the same in the fifth round as he did in the first. Now, he had some damage. Umar had caught him because he was bleeding a little bit. You could tell he'd been in a fight. You could tell. But as far as his pacing, I mean, he looked the same in the fifth round as he did in the first. And that's after just a relentless pace. All 5 rounds, every second of that fight, just going in, going in, going in as hard as he could. And he still looked like that in the fifth round. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. I was hoping Umar would beat Merab. I'm just not a fan of his style, but I will say have a little bit more respect for Merab now, because Umar did force him a little bit to stand on his feet, bang it out a little bit. He did force him, especially in those first few rounds, to find other ways to be successful, because the takedowns weren't there for him early. And Umar, being a very, very dominant grappler, and from, Khabib's cousin, training with those guys there at Dagestan, I mean, obviously, he was prepared for the grappling, and Marab wasn't able to take him down at first. But after Umar started getting tired, you could just see that Marab, he started to wilt. Marab started to sense that he was wilting. Then he started coming on stronger, and then he started having more success in every area. He started catching him with a couple of punches here and there. Marab caught him with a really, really good overhand right in the last round that I was like, whoa, shuddered him. I mean, Umar's got a chin, man. I give that guy credit for that. But yeah, I mean, I gotta say, it was a really, really good fight. Very entertaining fight. My brother was over. My son was watching it with me. We were like, damn, this is a good fight. But it didn't turn out like I wanted it to, but it turned out like I thought it would, if that makes sense. Moving up to the main event, Islam Makhachev versus Renato Moicano. Renato Moicano, I mean, you got the number 10 guy versus the champion. Renato Moicano's 35 years old. It's very unlikely that he'll ever get to this position again. So for that, I kind of felt bad for him. Especially, I don't know, in some ways, I'm glad that it ended quickly, quick first round Darce choke. He didn't have to get beat to a pulp, because I know he was training for a 3 round fight. Then he's coming in there all of a sudden in a 5 round fight against a champion, against a guy who is way more skilled than he is, in really all areas of the game, to be honest with you. And so I think Renato didn't really ever have much of a chance. I did think about betting like maybe $20 on him because he was such an underdog. If you would have bet $20 on him and he would have actually won, you would have probably been an overnight millionaire. It's like, I mean, Islam was literally like I think a minus 1,200, I believe. This one of the biggest favorites I've seen in quite a while. But I don't know, man. I don't. Of course, he finished him 405 in the first round. Darce chokes, more like a reverse. Um, what do you call it? Like an adapted Darce choke. It's not an actual Darce, but it's one that he's really good at. He got Dustin Poirier with it in their fight. He's so good at cinching that up, man. Once he sees that neck is available, and I knew, I felt like that Moicano, not that it would have made a difference, but I felt like Moicano should have just stayed on his back the rest of the round and then let the bell break it up, start back on the feet where he had a little bit of a better chance. Because when he rolled over to try to get up and he got on his knees like that, and I saw immediately the first thing Islam did is snake that arm up under there. I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. And it was it. Uh, Darce choke 405 around number one. But listen, hey, it's kind of what we expected. I don't think anybody really expected Moicano to beat Islam, if I'm being honest with you. I still would like to know why Arman Tsarukyan was not in that fight. I still think that there's something fishy about that. Um, you know, how are you at the press conference on Thursday and you're perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden Friday you develop an injury that's going to keep you from fighting? You know, you know what I think. He's missed weight before. If you don't make the 155, there's no way for you to win the belt. You have to be right on 155 or less. You don't have the 1 pound, where these guys have that 1 pound leeway. You don't have that if you're fighting for a title. And if you did weigh in at 156, you don't have a chance of winning the belt. So I think, especially seeing as how this supposed injury was declared before he ever weighed in, yeah, I think he wasn't on weight, is what I think. And I think that they felt like it was a better decision to just make up some sort of injury, as opposed to admitting that he wasn't making championship weight. And listen, you're not going to make the weight. you're already going to forfeit part of your purse to Islam. And then on top of it, you're going to go in there and possibly get your ass kicked to a 5 round war or get choked out in the first round. And you're not only going to get all of you, not going to get all of your money, but you're also don't have a chance to win the belt. Even if you do somehow even if you do somehow win in some sort of fluke fashion, you still don't get the belt because you didn't make weight, right? And I think that's what happened. That's my opinion. I think that's what happened. I think maybe we'll never know because obviously they're not going to tell the public that. All we can do is speculate. But you know, seems very weird to me that Armand was at that press conference on Thursday. Everything was good. Everything was good. Everything was good. And right before it's time to weigh in, oh my back, my back. Come on, bro. What were you doing? You can't tell me you injured that warming up. I mean, would you injure? What were you putting on a sock? You know, I mean, what the hell did you injure your back on? And if it was something that was chronic that had been going on for a long period of time, I think these guys would have caught it way sooner, at least earlier in the fight week, because nobody wants to fight Islam with an injury. Okay, so it didn't add up to me, man. But hey, I'm not gonna keep that was a different video. Already did a video on that, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was actually a really good card. It was enjoyable. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the next one's coming up. Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. If you would, please do subscribe to the channel, like the video, and also comment down below. I will see you guys on the next one. All right, guys, take care. Peace.